Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. The word of the day is fascism. Fascism this, fascism that. Donald Trump's a fascist, anybody I disagree with is a fascist. You know, we've heard it all, we've seen it all, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But of course, as we've pointed out, for the most part, it's been complete projection. The left points the finger claiming the other side is fascist, while of course acting like fascists themselves. When you mention that, when you point that out, what do they say? How is it possible that we're the fascists? It's in the name. Antifa. We are anti-fascist. As if all that's important is the brand, you know, the slogan, the headline, and not the actual action or content. Typical leftism. Just read the name of the bill and assume that there's nothing else in the bill. I mean, the bill says that there's nothing else in the bill. Take it all on face value, no critical thought whatsoever. The left is anti-fascist. Why? Well, because they said so. Well, of course, as we know, just because they claim it, just because they say it, doesn't make it so. While the left likes to focus on titles and build fraudulent narratives, I'd rather focus on the actual facts. They are the true fascists. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some examples here, so let's roll the tape. All right, friends, so the question is, what are you to believe? Their claims that they're anti-fascists? Or would it be smarter to simply take them at their word?
Them both. And it's no accident that we're seeing out in Windsor at the weekend. They wanted that to happen because that's their way of saying she's getting better. She's out and about.
Yeah.
But the conspiracy theorists won't even have that. That's not her.
But I mean, Jenny, is there any argument to say, this will sound crazy, but China does it. We've got to now take control of Twitter and shut it down for the time being.
I don't think we should take control of Twitter and shut it down. I do think we should perhaps ask the social media companies to stop promoting these conspiracy theories. I am not
Quote, we've got to now take control of Twitter and shut it down for the time being. That's what leftoids do when they lose control over the flow of information. That's the reaction. Elon Musk buys Twitter, makes it a platform for all. All of a sudden, right-wing voices are simply allowed to exist. We've seen a huge rise of representation from people of various different opinions on the platform, and apparently that's a bad thing. According to leftists, other people having the ability to have their voices heard, other people being represented in the public town square, is so utterly unacceptable that the only answer is they take control of Twitter and shut it down, only to relaunch it once order has been restored. And what they mean by order is only leftists are allowed to exist on the platform. Their perspective is that only they're allowed to speak, only they're allowed to set narratives, and anybody else with speech counter to their interest is a danger to democracy. This is why we call them elitists, and this is why we call them fascists, because from their perspective, only one group of people is allowed to speak, and the others, the plebeians, the people with whom they disagree with, well, those people shouldn't even be granted a voice. Here's the perfect example. Family Guy creator Seth MacFarlane speaking with, I forget his name, I know he's a rapper, he does a podcast now. Anyways, just take a look at what they had to say.
I think journalists are incredible.
Yes, so do I.
If somebody who writes an entire article about how much you suck, but they like fucking went to college, got a degree, earned it, take the time to go through all the things they don't particularly like about it, amazing. But then when you give that same power to every person in the universe with a Twitter account, has that ever affected you?
You know, when you look at legitimate journalism, I go back to what I said. You look at a New York Times article on Instagram, and then you look at the comments, and everyone thinks they're an expert. Everybody thinks that they know better than the person who did the legwork. Everybody thinks they know better than the person who put in the hours, did the research, did the interviews, did the follow-up, did the best that they could to make sure that everything that they put into print is factual. And maybe they missed something, maybe they f***ed up, but they did their best.
Yeah.
And then, you know, me, Johnny Spaghetti stain on his shirt, writes a comment. That's bullshit. It's shocking to me that any press outlet just they consent to comments under there, because there are studies that have shown that if you read an article on social media, you process it a certain way. Once you read the comments and you start absorbing the inevitable extremism that comes with the comments that are kind of reduce that to black and white, your perception of the original article is affected. That you go back to the original article and you look at it in a more extreme, more polarized way.
Yeah, we're the fascists, even though leftist thought leaders are literally arguing that only journalists, only people who went to college and got journalism degrees should be allowed to report on information. Yeah, that definitely wouldn't be a dangerous, slippery slope towards total elite control over information. That's what they want. They want the media oligarchs who control the journalists to be able to set the narratives, and only they are allowed to assess the truth. Independent journalists or regular people, your opinions, not only shouldn't be listened to, but should be suppressed. There's a word for that. It's called fascism. Then, of course, the argument would be, well, that's just a random TV host from the UK and two idiot Hollywood celebrities who don't know their dick from their elbow. It doesn't mean anything. Random people have bad opinions. Yeah, except, of course, it doesn't end there. It's not just random celebrities or random leftoids on Twitter. It goes all the way to the tippy top of the leftist power or influence pyramid. Here's left-wing Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson arguing the other day that the First Amendment is too strict on the government, making it hard for the government to control and censor speech.
Jackson?
So my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways in the most important time periods. What would you have the government do? I've heard you say a couple times that the government can post its own speech, but in my hypothetical, kids, this is not safe, don't do it, is not going to get it done. And so I guess some might say that the government actually has a duty to take steps to protect the citizens of this country, and you seem to be suggesting that that duty cannot manifest itself in the government encouraging or even pressuring platforms to take down harmful information. So can you help me? Because I'm really worried about that, because you've got the First Amendment operating in an environment of threatening circumstances from the government's perspective, and you're saying that the government can't interact with the source of those problems.
Yeah, we're the fascists though, right? Democrats literally put a fascist activist in the Supreme Court to argue that the First Amendment isn't a good thing and that the government should have more control over speech and information flow. I mean, absolutely freaking wild. The word is projection. We're not the fascists, they are. Well, maybe they're not fascists, but they certainly are wannabe fascists. And polling data seems to back this up. Take a look at this from Pew Research. Partisan divisions have widened over role of government, tech firms in restricting misinformation. Percent of US adults who say the US government should take steps to restrict false info online, even if it limits freedom of info. Look at that spike from 2018 to 2021. 65% of Democrats believe the government should be restricting speech online. Tech companies should take steps to restrict false info online, even if it limits freedom of info. 76% of Democrats believe that tech companies should be limiting freedom of information, controlling what can and what cannot be said. And let's not forget that the leader of the Democrat Party, Joe Biden, most likely following Obama's guidance, attempted to launch essentially a US Ministry of Truth. Let's not forget Nina Jankowicz at the DHS, who was supposed to head the Ministry of Disinformation. They are the real fascists. It's absolutely clear. Don't take it from me. They're saying it and taking the action openly, publicly for everybody to see. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.